Carlos the Jackal was described as the most wanted man in the world.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the most infamous criminal manhunts around the world.
He has been in hiding for more than 20 years, one of the world's most wanted terrorists.
Number 20, Ramzi Youssef. While he conducted several terrorist activities, Ramzi Youssef is most famous for orchestrating the World Trade Center bombing of 1993.
He was a known international terrorist and an expert with explosives. Agents now believed he was the mastermind behind the World Trade Center bombing.
Youssef parked a car bomb underneath the North Tower and lit the device, which weighed over 1,300 pounds. It went off 12 minutes later, injuring over 1,000 and killing 7. He remained free for 2 years, but was finally caught in 1995 through a joint operation between Pakistan's Inter-Services Intelligence and the U.S. Diplomatic Security Service.
It was not until February of 1995, 2 years after the Trade Center bomb went off, that Ramzi Youssef was apprehended in Pakistan and turned over to FBI agents.
Agents were tipped off that Youssef was hiding in Islamabad, Pakistan, and raided his room at the Sukasa guest house on February 7, 1995. He was extradited from Pakistan to the U.S. and given 2 life sentences plus 240 years.
The judge, calling Youssef an apostle of evil, ruled that Youssef should serve the remainder of his life in solitary confinement. Only a life of solitude could prevent Youssef from conspiring to kill again.
Number 19, Félicien Kabuga. A successful businessman who ran tea farms, Félicien Kabuga is also one of the main perpetrators of the Rwandan genocide.
Kabuga was indicted by the UN's International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda on 2 counts of crimes against humanity and 5 counts of genocide, including the direct and public incitement to commit genocide.
Kabuga used his wealth to finance extremist media outlets and was closely linked to the Akazu, a group of Hutus who slaughtered up to 800,000 Tutsis. Between January 1993 and March 1994, Kabuga helped import 500,000 machetes into Rwanda, thereby financing the weapons used in the massacre.
He is additionally accused of importing and distributing the machetes that were used to kill more than 500,000 people over the space of just 100 days.
He fled the country in 1994, supposedly into nearby Kenya. Kabuga remained a wanted fugitive until 2020, when agencies from Rwanda, Belgium, and the United States found him hiding in Paris. However, he was found unfit to stand trial owing to dementia.
The War Crimes Tribunal said in June that Kabuga was no longer healthy enough to go on trial, but that he should still undergo a stripped-down legal process without a verdict.
Number 18, IRA fugitives. Northern Ireland housed a political prison called HM Prison Maze that was used to hold paramilitaries during the Troubles.
The maze is not just secure, it's a hellhole. Guards control the prisoners with an iron fist. This is because the maze prisoners aren't ordinary prisoners.
The maze was thought to be escape-proof until September 25, 1983, when 38 members of the Irish Republican Army escaped with the help of smuggled guns.
Now that they're in control of the food truck, 37 prisoners pile into the back, and that is now the escape vehicle that they hope will drive them out of the maze complex and to freedom.
20 prison officers were injured, and 1 died of a heart attack. 19 escapees were caught within a few days, but the other 19 disappeared into the wind.
It didn't take long, for the authorities to set up checkpoints, and news of the escape spread fairly quickly.
Many have since been apprehended all across the world, with arrests occurring in the Netherlands, Scotland, and the United States. Of the arrested, some have since received amnesty, allowing them to return to Ireland as free men. 2 of the 38 escapees have never been found. Number 17, Ante Gotovina. Fought between 1991 and 95, the Croatian War of Independence saw Croatia win independence from the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia.
Separatists had seized the region around Knin and drove out its Croat population, declaring it as the Republic of Serbian Krajina. Just some 84 hours later, however, Croatian forces took back control.
The last major battle was Operation Storm, in which Croatian Lieutenant General Ante Gotovina played a major role.
Operation Storm changed the course of the wars in the former Yugoslavia. In less than a week, it ended more than 4 years of Serb control in a large section of Croatian territory and sealed Gotovina's status as a national hero.
Gotovina was later charged with war crimes in relation to killing and displacing Serb civilians. Gotovina fled, resulting in an Interpol arrest warrant and a $5 million reward from the U.S. government. Spanish investigators were able to track Gotovina to the Canary Islands, and he was captured by special forces on December 7, 2005. He was sentenced to 24 years in prison, but was released in 2012 following a successful appeal.
An appeals court has overturned the conviction of the most senior Croatian military officer charged with war crimes during the Balkan conflicts. General Ante Gotovina, the former commander of the Croatian army, has been cleared of targeting civilian institutions during fighting against ethnic Serbs in 1995.
Number 16. Abdalhamid Abaaoud. Born in Belgium, Abdalhamid Abaaoud became the subject of an international arrest warrant after recruiting people to Islamic terrorism in Syria.
Abaaoud was from Belgium, and he was able to travel in and out of Syria several times, exploiting Europe's porous borders and lack of intelligence sharing.
It was during this time as a fugitive that Abaaoud masterminded the November 2015 Paris attacks, which left 416 people injured and 130 dead. The international arrest warrant was placed under greater scrutiny, but Abaaoud remained on the run for nearly a week.
A young man linked to one of the worst attacks in modern-day France. ISIL says it's behind it in what it calls its war against the West.
French police learned that one of Abaaoud's relatives lived in the Saint-Denis suburb of Paris and performed extensive observation of the area. Positive that Abaaoud was there, they conducted a raid on the morning of November 18th. 3 suspects were killed in the resulting shootout, including Abaaoud.
We do now have confirmation that Abdalhamid Abaaoud was indeed killed yesterday morning in that massive raid in the suburb of Saint-Denis, just north of Paris.
Number 15. Carlos the Jackal. Real name Ilyich Ramirez Sanchez, Carlos the Jackal was a Venezuelan terrorist active between 1973 and 85.
His biographer has described him as the Osama Bin Laden of his day, and indeed Carlos the Jackal has expressed his admiration for Bin Laden.
Supported by both the Stasi and the KGB, Carlos conducted the OPEC siege of 1975 in Vienna, Austria, which resulted in 3 deaths. His wife, Magdalena Kopp, was later arrested, prompting Carlos to go on a bombing spree that left 11 dead and more than 100 injured.
The Jackal is said to have once boasted of being responsible for more than 100 attacks. A self-styled hitman describing himself as a professional revolutionary.
He then became an international fugitive, finding protection in various Eastern European states. Carlos was eventually expelled from Syria in 1991 and found solace in Sudan. He was eventually found by CIA contractor Billy Waugh, who trailed Carlos's personal bodyguards to his apartment. After talks with Sudan's Sheikh Hassan al-Turabi, Carlos was captured and extradited to France, where he remains imprisoned.
Seized by French agents in Sudan in August 1994, he was sentenced 3 years later to life imprisonment for the murder of 2 police officers and their informant in Paris.
Number 14. Ratko Mdic. A prominent military officer, Ratko Mdic played a major role in the Bosnian War, serving as chief of the General Staff of the Army of Republika Srpska. While in this role, Mdic conducted a series of war crimes and became known as the Butcher of Bosnia.
Chilling words from the man they called the Butcher of Bosnia, General Ratko Mdic. The snide humor masked his killer instinct.
An international warrant was issued for his arrest, prompting Mdic to flee and live as a fugitive for the next 15 years.
Mdic became a wanted man and soon went into hiding. I never knew if I would see him again, the man with whom I'd stood on a Bosnian hilltop at the height of the war.
On the morning of May 26, 2011, 4 SUVs entered the Serbian village of Lazarevo carrying 24 masked police officers. They approached the house sheltering Mdic and broke in, intercepting Mdic just as he was leaving for a walk. He was thrown to the ground and arrested, leading to a sentence of life in prison.
But the court rejected the plea, finding Mdic guilty on 1 of 2 counts of genocide and 9 of war crimes and crimes against humanity during the chaotic breakup of the former Yugoslavia.
Number 13. Charles Sobrage. From the 1950s on, traveling South Asia became popular with the hippie subculture along a route known as the Hippie Trail. It was here that Charles Sobrage preyed on his victims, a prolific serial killer. Sobrage murdered at least 12 people traveling the trail, and possibly as many as 30.
And what you would do is pick a person or a couple, drug them.
Yes, that's correct.
Take their passport and any valuables they might have and move on.
That's correct.
After he was charged with 4 murders in Thailand, Interpol issued an international arrest warrant. He remained free for 2 more months. In July of 1976, Sobraj was overpowered by potential victims, who then called the police. Sobraj was arrested and jailed in India until 1997. Feeling overconfident, he eventually moved to Nepal, where he was re-arrested, spending time in prison until 2022. Number 12. Ali Hassan Salama. Born into mandatory Palestine, Ali Hassan Salama became chief of operations for the Palestinian militant organization Black September. On May 8, 1972, Black September hijacked Sabina Flight 571, demanding that Palestinian prisoners be released from Israel. 4 months later, they carried out the infamous Munich massacre at the Summer Olympics, killing 11 in the process.
His son Ali is probably best known for founding the armed PLO group Black September, which killed 11 members of the Israeli Olympic team in Munich in 1972.
Salama was hunted by Israel's intelligence agency, the Mossad. The CIA warned Salama, who had organized for the Palestine Liberation Organization to protect the U.S. Embassy and American citizens in Lebanon. But on January 22, 1979, the Mossad managed to kill him with a car bomb, which also killed his 4 bodyguards and 4 bystanders, and left 16 others injured.
They decided to use a huge amount of explosive that would hit him while being in his convoy and would likely kill him and his bodyguards.
Number 11. James Earl Ray. On April 4, 1968, civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. was fatally shot.
He was on the second-floor balcony, standing exactly where these 2 officers are, talking with some of his aides at the time of the shooting. The scene immediately became confused. Officers ran forward and attempted to secure the area.
While it's been alleged that government agencies had a role, James Earl Ray is the man who was eventually convicted for the murder. After the slaying, Ray drove east to Atlanta before fleeing to Canada, Portugal, and England. While in Canada, he obtained a passport under the name Ramon George Snade, but the authorities caught on.
The assassin had fled to Toronto, where he was getting a Canadian passport and fleeing the country for Europe.
While attempting to leave England for Brussels, the airport ticket agent scanned Ray's passport and found that Ramon Snade was wanted by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. They notified the authorities, and Ray was arrested at London Heathrow Airport. This was on June 8, 1968, 2 months after King's death on April 4th. Number 10. Luca Magnata.
But what would push anyone to do this? And how did he go from internet wannabe to the object of an international manhunt?
Obsessed with becoming famous, Canadian man Luca Magnata sought notoriety online, uploading videos of him killing cats. Online sleuths tipped off police, but on May 25, 2012, Magnata uploaded a video of him murdering Chinese international student Lin Jun. He then mailed body parts across the country. Fleeing from Montreal to Paris, Magnata attempted to lay low in Europe. However, he was eventually apprehended in Berlin after an Interpol red notice was issued. What was he doing? Reading news stories about himself at an internet cafe.
And asked the person for his identification. He gave them a false name, but he got very nervous, so they insisted to see his passport.
Number 9. Ravan Karajic. Karajic is a co-founder of Bosnia's Serb Democratic Party and was the first president of the Republika Srpska, serving from 1992 to 1996.
Ravan Karajic saw an opportunity to reinvent himself as a militant nationalist leader, riding on this wave of growing Serbian nationalism.
During the Bosnian War between 1992 and 1995, Karadzic committed war crimes against non-Serbs, including genocide, and is thought to have murdered up to 7,500 Muslims.
Well, Karadzic is accused of mass murder on a horrific scale, but in his homeland, his followers claim the Hague Tribunal is simply a kangaroo court where justice is unlikely to ever happen.
He fled to Belgrade and worked in a private clinic under the alias Dr. Dragan David Dabic, while subsequently living in Vienna, Austria under the name Peter Glumatz.
During the 13-year-long manhunt for him, nobody, not even friends and close relatives, knew that Karadzic and Dr. Dabic were the same person.
His capture could be straight from a screenplay. Karadzic was allegedly taken into custody by Belgrade locals who figured out his real identity and wanted to claim the reward for his capture. Number 8. Ayman Mohammed Rabi el-Zawahiri. After Osama bin Laden was killed, Egyptian-born Ayman Mohammed Rabi al-Zawahiri became leader of the Islamist militant organization Al-Qaeda. Al-Zawahiri is responsible for a host of atrocities, including a car bombing on the Egyptian embassy in Pakistan. He was listed under indictment by the United States government for his role in the infamous 1998 U.S. embassy bombings.
In August 1998, they blew up the U.S. embassies in Tanzania and Kenya.
He's perhaps best known for his many videos supporting heinous actions such as the 9/11 attacks. Illustrating their desire to capture al-Zawahiri, in February 2016, the U.S. Department of State offered $25 million for information leading to his capture. He was killed by a drone strike in Afghanistan on July 31, 2022.
But tonight, President Biden announcing the United States finally caught up with Ayman al-Zawahiri, killing the al-Qaeda leader in a weekend drone strike in Afghanistan.
Now, justice has been delivered, and this terrorist leader is no more.
Number 7. Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein served as the 5th president of Iraq, ruling from July 1979 to April 2003. However, his presidency was less than fortunate for some citizens of Iraq, as his dictatorship was responsible for hundreds of thousands of deaths.
His security forces retaliated, burning down all of the town's farmland.
In January 2002, American President George W. Bush announced that he would collapse the Iraqi government due to its alleged possession of weapons of mass destruction. After the 2003 American invasion of Iraq, Saddam lost his control over the government and went into hiding.
The 8-month manhunt ended here.
This is it.
In a muddy orange grove, where the dictator had fallen from palaces to pauper.
He was eventually captured in December 2003 by American forces at a farm near Tikrit after 9 months of topping the most wanted Iraqis list. He was hanged on December 20th, 2006.
This is Judgment Day for Saddam Hussein. The verdict is in, guilty as charged, and the sentence is death by hanging.
Number 6. Adolf Eichmann. A well-known lieutenant colonel in Nazi Germany's SS organization, Adolf Eichmann was one of the leading orchestrators of the mass deportation of Jews to extermination camps during the Holocaust.
At the end of World War II, Nazi leaders on trial at Nuremberg had named SS Lieutenant Colonel Adolf Eichmann as the man who had arranged the transport of Jews to the death camps.
After being captured by Americans, Eichmann escaped custody and briefly hid in Germany before fleeing to Argentina, becoming department head at Mercedes-Benz.
But Eichmann, still Ricardo Clement, was now doing odd jobs around Buenos Aires. Laundromat owner, rabbit farmer, mechanic, and then foreman at a Mercedes-Benz plant.
His capture was the result of an emigrated half-Jew whose daughter began dating Eichmann's son, Klaus Eichmann, in 1956. Klaus frequently bragged about his father's Nazi past, and after Mossad authorities had been alerted, Eichmann was captured 4 years after the investigation began.
Eichmann was sedated, smuggled to Israel, and placed under arrest for war crimes, crimes against humanity, and crimes against the Jewish people.
Number 5. Edward Snowden. Hero, whistleblower, dissident, patriot, and traitor. Edward Snowden has been called them all. A former CIA employee and NSA contractor, he's the man responsible for publicly exposing the NSA's mass surveillance programs in 2013.
The NSA specifically targets the communications of everyone. It ingests them by default. It collects them in its system, and it filters them, and it analyzes them, and it measures them, and it stores them for periods of time.
The Department of Justice charged Snowden with violating the Espionage Act of 1917 and theft of government property. In May of 2013, Snowden flew from Hawaii to Hong Kong, courtesy of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, to protect Snowden from the backlash. In June of that same year, he traveled to Russia, where he was eventually granted asylum for 3 years.
You know, no country is perfect, and Russia has some political policies that I disagree very strongly with. They monitor the internet in ways I consider inappropriate. But my day-to-day life, you know, it's much better than prison.
While he's currently looking for sanctuary elsewhere, the only thing that's certain is that he will continue to divide public opinion. Number 4. Muammar al-Gaddafi. After helping orchestrate the 1969 Libyan coup d'etat, Muammar al-Gaddafi grew to power as the primary leader and governor of Libya from 1969 to 2011.
He wrote the Green Book. He is a revolutionary. His life is a revolutionary life. He's very proud of it. I just can't see him retreating from it in any way.
Serving as the brotherly leader of the Great Socialist People's Libyan Arab Jamahiriya, Gaddafi soon became infamous due to his support of terrorism and his violation of human rights.
Gaddafi had started to export his own brand of world revolution,
by supporting a variety of groups.
Do you still provide material aid to the IRA?
We support the struggle of these people to restore their independence.
The country's strained relationship with the West eventually resulted in the 1986 bombing of Libya. During the Arab Spring of 2011, rebel militias pushed back against Gaddafi and he went on the run. NATO bombers eventually attacked his convoy, and Gaddafi was taken prisoner and subsequently killed.
This is a Libya that for the first time in 42 years does not have to live in fear of Muammar Gaddafi.
Number 3, El Chapo Guzman. Born Joaquin Guzman, this drug lord is arguably the most influential and powerful drug kingpin of all time.
To many in Sinaloa, El Chapo is not just a drug trafficker. He's a hero. They see him as a modern-day Robin Hood.
The DEA has noted that his reach has exceeded that of Pablo Escobar, and the Chicago Crime Commission named him Public Enemy Number 1, a distinction not given out since Al Capone in 1930. After being captured in 1993, El Chapo escaped from prison in 2001 by bribing security guards.
In towns near the prison, the Mexican army raid houses, ranches, and government buildings looking for the kingpin. But El Chapo has vanished.
Wanted by the American and Mexican governments, he was arrested by Mexican authorities in 2014. He escaped prison again in 2015 via a secret tunnel system, before being recaptured in January of 2016 by the Mexican Navy. Number 2, Pablo Escobar. At the height of his power, Colombian drug lord Pablo Escobar was supplying up to 80% of America's cocaine and was personally worth $30 billion. But as is often the case with criminals, Escobar met a violent end.
I remember the police always telling me, he says, Javier, we're not in this to get dope. We're not in this to seize money. We're in here to kill Pablo Escobar. Why? It's a revenge. It's personal.
He escaped from his own personal prison in 1992 and was pursued by Colombian National Police Task Force, the Search Block. Eventually, the United States also joined the hunt with Colombian officials, and on December 2, 1993, Escobar was shot and killed during a shootout on the Medellin rooftops.
According to officials, the head of the Medellin cartel was killed in a shootout with Colombian security forces who were surrounding his hideout.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1, Osama Bin Laden. Easily the most famous manhunt in history, the search for Osama Bin Laden has been well documented in both the news and Hollywood. The founder of Al-Qaeda, Bin Laden was responsible for massive attacks on civilian targets and claimed responsibility for the 9/11 attacks. For 10 years, Bin Laden's capture was of utmost importance to the FBI, and a $25 million bounty was placed on his head. It took 10 years before he was finally located in Abbottabad, Pakistan in 2011. Barack Obama famously ordered Operation Neptune Spear, and Bin Laden's compound was stormed.
Just based on the level of threat of him not surrendering and the likelihood of him having a vest, I engaged him. I shot him twice in the head. He fell on the floor. I shot him one more time, and I killed him.
The operation resulted in Bin Laden's death, and so ended a decade of searching. Which of these manhunts did you follow? Let us know in the comments.
They said that they only really realized what a big deal this was when they left the White House. Suddenly they hear these cheers.